Okay, let's do your money line. It's a vertical line that starts down on the headline. It goes up towards the mercury finger. And that space in between the head and the heart line, that's age 20, 30, and half of 40. Then it crosses the heart line at 45. And then it goes on up towards that mercury finger, and that's the rest of 45 to 50, and 50, 60, 70, probably 80, because you're going to live until you're 89. The explanations between the sun and the mercury finger: one line, one income in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, then two lines, and they're good lines too, they're nice solid lines, two lines in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, and probably your 80s. That's a really good money line. Okay, under that mercury finger now, see where the flirt lines are? Those flirt lines are little tassels on the end of the heart line. Yours are pretty good. Then that section between the flirt lines, they're not flirt lines. They means you interact well with people. And then that section in between there and the ring around the mercury finger, that's going to show your marriages, relationships, and your children. The children are vertical lines, and the marriage and relationships are horizontal lines that come from the outside of the hand in towards the palm. So you divide that up into thirds, starting at the flirt lines. That first third is about age 20, 30. Second third's about 30, 40. Last third's about 50, 60, 70. And then the children lines come down, they're in green, from the money, not the money line, the mercury finger. They start on the inside. You read from the inside out. See that first line right there by the little asterisk? That's your first child, and then the next child. That's all I could see was a couple of children lines in there. That was kind of a hard little area to read. Okay, starting by the flirt lines, I see one relationship line. It's probably in your 20s before your marriage. Then you got two marriage lines. They're in purple. First marriage, good color. It's quite even. It doesn't look like it. I didn't draw it very even, though. But it's quite even. That means no ups and downs in marriage. About 20 years long. Then your second marriage, it's got a good color, but it's much longer. It's got a little tiny island in there. That means you, at some point, probably way into the marriage, you might have to be away from each other. Maybe one person has to work in one place and the other person has to work in another one, or maybe the father's away from the family or something for a little while. That's all that means. But it's a good marriage. Now, I can't tell you exactly when you're going to marry, but there's a little marking on the fate line. The fate line has a good timeline on it, where it's the line that starts at the base of your palm, and it goes up to that Saturn finger only, and where it crosses over that headline, that is about age 40. Where it crosses that heart line, that's about 50. Every eighth of an inch is about a year. Every half an inch is about 7 years. So there's a little mark that is an indication it's a chance to marry. But you're the master of your fate. You're the one that makes the choice. Like I say, it looks like the letter Y, a little stick with a fork on the end, and it'll show up in that fate line on a timeline. So here's where that little marking shows up in that fate line at age 32, 33, 35, 45, 51, and 53. And by that time, at 50, that's crossed over the heart line. Okay, but I say, you make the choice when to marry. The basic choice. That's just a positive time when you can marry. Oh, by the way, on the side of that mercury finger, see there's a little marking there that says lucky sign. It's a little triangle thing. And you've got a little lucky sign there between the ages of 28 and 32. What are you right now? You're 30, aren't you? 38, 32, you're right in the middle of a little lucky period in your life. We're going to do who your guardian angels are, and if you've ever had a visit from a guardian angel. Those lines on your left hand only. The line comes up from underneath the lifeline, and it'll touch on the lifeline at the age you were when you had someone that you bonded to has died. A loved one, like grandparents, parents, siblings, aunties, uncles, cousins, old boyfriends, old girlfriends. And it touches on the line, then it makes a little tiny line that goes across the two lines. So here's the age as you were when you had a loved one that died and has become a guardian angel to you at age 13 and one at 15. And that's on your left hand. Now on your right hand only, if you've ever had a visit from a guardian angel, a little divine intervention, if you've been really sick, or if you've had an operation or an accident, or if you're in distress, the line comes up and touches at the bottom of that lifeline at the age you were. That's a visit from a guardian angel. Or sometimes if someone that you bonded to has died, their spirit will, when it lifts out of their body, will go around and check on all their loved ones before it goes off into the light. So sometimes you'll have one at the same time that when someone has passed away. Oh, you got one of those at 15. So here's your little visits from guardian angels at age 12, and at 15 and 27. Oh, did you have an operation around 27, 26? Oh, that's close enough. Like I say, you got to give me about a year's leeway on these, because I have to count that down by the eighth of the inch. Okay, let's see. Let's do your heart line. This is your first major line in your hand. That heart line starts between your Jupiter and Saturn fingers, comes down, should make a nice curve down there in the palm, and then go off to the side where the flirt lines are. And it does. You got a good curved heart line there. It's very loving and caring. You don't want to see any markings on that line. Look up there where it says lines of energy in the upper left-hand corner of your chart, and run your finger down where it says islands, ISLANDS, and see those little markings, the little ovals, or the kind of triangle-y looking things, little circles. If they show up underneath the line, or on top of the line, or in the middle of the line, that's a little break in the energy of that line. And you got a little triangle-y thing hanging down there at the bottom. A little bit of slight heart health. Some slight heart health stress. A little bit of stress on that heart line. That's because you're out of place in that top part of the neck where your nerves go to your heart. I'll explain that in a minute. Jump over there underneath the Jupiter finger. Other than that, the heart line looks really good. The curve in it's really good. Under the Jupiter finger there. There's little red lines in there just underneath that. Those are some childhood injuries. And then you'll see right down there in the palm, underneath that Jupiter finger, you should have a nice little fat pad. That is your sixth sense, or your intuition. Now here's how that works. If you got a problem you got to solve, just clear your mind completely. Let it go blank for about 30 minutes. And then when you come back to solve the problem, you'll probably have it already solved, because that gives your intuition or your sixth sense time to kick in, and it helps you solve the problem. So listen to those little promptings in your head. And yours is excellent, by the way. And you also, in between that heart and that headline, you got a couple little X's in there. Those are little psychic marks. You're a little bit psychic. Now, the lengths of the fingers are your talents. Everybody has talents. No one gets cheated. So long fingers mean one thing, short fingers mean another thing. Nothing's good or bad. That's just the way you're born. Look down there in the lower right-hand corner of your chart where it says palm shapes. The shape of your palm is probably your most important talent. Let's see. Oh, you've got the athletic palm. It's kind of straight, kind of rectangular. Upper right-hand corner of your chart. Type of fingertips. This is your personality. You got a little mixture there. Got about 3 squarish fingers. Practical, orderly, punctual, stubborn, a little macho. If you don't know what that means, it's a little tough, a little aggressive. Round, intuitive, quick, very compassionate. You got 2 of those fingers. I usually see those on the health workers, like the doctors and the nurses and the social workers. Jump down there to the thumb now. We're going to do your talents according to the length of your fingers. That thumb is long. It means you will do well in life because you have good manual dexterity. You hold tools and instruments well, and you work well with your hands. Up onto that index finger, that Jupiter finger. Let me explain the names on these. Palmistry is about 2,000 or 3,000 years old, and they had gone through and they named all the fingers in different areas of the palm, usually with names of Greek gods or goddesses or astrological names. So that index finger is the Jupiter finger, middle finger is the Saturn, ring finger is the Sun finger, or sometimes called the Apollo finger, and then the little finger is the Mercury finger. That section between the head and the heart line, clear across the palm, that's called the Mars area. And then right at the base of the thumb, that little fat pad there, that's called the Mount of Venus. Venus, goddess of love, because that's going to show your sexual libido. And it's going to tell you if you're drinking enough water, too. You're slightly, just slightly dehydrated. I'm seeing a couple of little wrinkles in there. You want to see that pad at the base of your thumb just as fat. So fat you can hardly pick the skin up. And that means you're drinking 32 ounces of water a day and you're getting well hydrated. Your body can live without food for a while, but it can't live without water. Back to that Jupiter finger, the index finger now. That is, that's absolutely average. Needs to come up to about halfway on that top joint on that business finger. So you got both qualities. Self-motivated worker, you work well on your own. And the boss finger, the manager, the supervisor, the teaching finger, sales finger. Then that business finger is quite long. That's excellent. Good business sense. You know how to make money. Let me see what you do. Program executive. Yes, you do. Okay, ring finger, the sun finger. A little bit short. Very practical, systematic, organized. A place for everything and everything in its place. And that little finger is a little bit short too. Hands-on person. You're very active when you work. Sitting at a desk is not your favorite thing to do. So find your chart now that says Chart of Effects of Spinal Misalignment. See your spine there on the left-hand side, and then on the right next to that column that says the vertebrae. That's the name of the vertebrae that each one of those go to. Your cervical, your thoracic, your lumbar, and your tailbone. Then the next column is the areas. That's the area of your body that the nerves go to from that particular vertebrae. The head, the eyes, the cheeks, the nose, vocal cords, the heart, the lungs, the gallbladder, etc., etc. And then the last column is the effects. And that's the effects that you get if that vertebrae is turned out of place and pinching those nerves that come from each side. Depression, strokes, stiff neck, asthma, heart problems, lung problems, gallbladder problems, etc., etc. So, see where I've circled in the red? That's where you're out of place in that spine. A lot of that in the, in that neck area. And I think you're out right at the very, very top where that atlas and axis, the C1 and C2, they sit up underneath the skull. And they interrupt the blood flow up into your head. The blood and the oxygen flow up into your head when they're out. Then you get down there to the base of your neck, and you got a good case of interneck. I used to read palms in the 1995, 96, 97. And the necks were out of place, but boy, since the advent of the computer People from all over the world, their necks are just a mess. I call it the internet, because they're out of leaning on those computers for 2 or 3 hours a day, if not more. Just throws that neck out of place. Going along that headline, you see it tips down at the end. That's making a depression line, because you're out at the very, very top. See, if you follow your finger over there to where the effects are, it says depression. Also on that 6C, that's just before the base of your neck. That causes depression when that's out there. So underneath that Jupiter finger, that's going to show your cervical vertebrae, starting in between the thumb and the Jupiter finger. And go along that line. That's going to show where you're at. It'll show us these little island marks. So that's all out, all along that whole cervical area, that 1 through 7. That's out of place. I think you're using the computer quite a bit. It looks like to me. Or you've been jammed, or you've got hurt in your spine some way. Easy to have an accident, bicycle accidents, car accidents, jumping on trampolines, or doing contact sports. If you did any sports like in your secondary schools or even in your elementary schools, can cause that spine to get messed up. Let me tell you that in a minute. Let me finish telling you. You're out into that in that cervical area, and a little bit out in that thoracic area, which the thoracic vertebrae are underneath the Saturn finger, 1 through 12, and the lumbar are out under that Sun finger, 1 through 5, and the tailbone is under that Mercury finger. So you're out the top of the spine, then it throws you out in the lower spine, the opposite way to compensate. Okay, our last line is down in the lower right-hand corner of your chart. This is your fate line. It's the green line that starts down at the base of your palm and goes up to the Saturn finger only. Like I say, every 1/8 of an inch is about a year. Every 1/2 an inch is about 7 years. Yours kind of starts to the outside of your palm. If it comes right down the middle, you're kind of a private person. If it starts the outside of the palm, you're quite sociable. You like to have your friends and family around you all the time. So yours is sociable. And then that line runs up, crosses over the headline at age 40, crosses the heart line at 50, and goes up to the base of that Saturn finger. And that line around the base of the Saturn finger is age 80. And then if it goes up into the finger, that's an ends. That's the age you are. That's how long, the age you are when, how long your life's going to be. Down in the lower right-hand corner, fate lines, career and lifestyle. Every time that breaks, it's a change in one or the other, usually both. Sometimes you'll have a little minor change, just a little line that comes off the side. But I've circled the good ones that are broken there. Alright, that starts about 20 at the base of your palm, so you got a little change there at 25, 31, 37, it breaks at 37. It's a change in your career and your lifestyle, 37. 40 was a fairly good break, kind of a major change there in your career and lifestyle. And then that crosses over the heart line, and at age 55 to 70, I get 3 lines in there. That's 3 jobs all at the same time. Could be a job in a family, could be a job in a hobby. And then I get 1 line that goes to the left of the Saturn finger. That means the spine's jammed. And then that line goes up into the finger to about age 89. You're going to live till you're about 89 years old.